Moving on to a serious subject that affects millions of people, postpartum depression, until you courageously came out to share your own personal experience with it, it was something that many women wouldn't discuss and had to fight alone. How did you decide to come out about postpartum depression? And if you're comfortable, could you share what you actually went through, since it's harrowing for many people?
I'd like to say that it was more altruistic in my decision to write a book. It was more of a sense of personal responsibility to my kids, because I had my one daughter actually, so it's my oldest daughter. And it was something that I was so ashamed of and so afraid by, that I knew that when I was starting to kind of see the light and come out of it, I knew that I had to take responsibility for it. Just by virtue of the fact that I had a young girl, had a young daughter who might one day grow up and actually experience such a devastating experience. And the more, when I decided to write the book and I started talking to people, I realized what a taboo subject it was. And that was when I realized that my responsibility was bigger. So it did not start so I did not plan on making a difference with people, because I'm not sure you can ever decide to make a difference with people, with anything. But I knew that I needed to write it to take responsibility for my actions with my daughter. And then inadvertently, what had happened was I ended up talking to people and nobody wanted to talk about it. And everybody was ashamed. And you know, you have a baby and you're told that this is supposed to be the happiest moment of your life, and your hair is supposed to get scaled down, and you're supposed to look at this infant, and the world comes into focus. And to not feel any of those things was so devastating to me. But I still thought it was my fault. And the more people I talked to, the more I realized that the fault needed to be alleviated from people that, you know, it takes a while, it's very different, your life changes, but biochemically, the biochemical point of, or part of depression is something that I had never really focused on before, and it wasn't until I did the research and I realized that it wasn't a fault of mine, that I then realized we needed to keep talking.
When someone is experiencing postpartum depression and feeling awful about themselves or lonely, what would you actually recommend after everything you've experienced yourself?
You know, it's harder to recommend it to the people going through it, because I ask the caregivers to say, you know, when you say, I'm fine, do you really mean it? Because if someone asks you if you're fine after having a baby, you're going to say, I'm fine, I'm fine. And we're taught to be fine. It's hard as the person going through it to ask for that kind of help, because what you're asking for is you're asking for acknowledgement about being what you consider faulty. You know, it's supposed to be natural, and all of a sudden you can't hold your kid, you can't look at them, you feel like you need to run away, and so it's really hard at that point to ask. But what I ask is the people around those individuals, and the caregivers and the doctors, and you know, within the first 2 weeks you go to the hospital more than you go to the hospital for any other time, at any other point in your life. And the questions all are about the baby. The baby gets the shots, the baby gets the weighing, the baby gets, and the moms don't usually get the attention. And then when the doctor turns to you and says, how are you? You're like, as long as the kid's alive, you say you're fine. and so that, I mean, you know, that's I sort of put a little bit of the onus more on the periphery. I mean, on the people that are the caregivers and the spouses and the friends and the partners, and just to sort of say, you know what, this person's not quite acting the way I know that they would act. And then, you know, bring in the experts. I think that's you know, thankfully my husband got to the helpless point after a lot of trauma and finally said, I don't know what to do. You know, and then that when I saw him falter, I thought, oh my God, maybe there's something that I need to take care of. I mean, if I had had any other disease, I would be quick to take